So I want to thank the committee for putting this together. You guys have done an amazing job. Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me? I'm using my teacher voice. I want to thank you for getting your butts out of bed and coming. I want to thank Vanya for opening things up for us this morning. That was lovely. And then I want to shift our tone just a little bit to talk about you, right? So why are we going to talk about LinkedIn? Who here loves LinkedIn? Right? Me too. I'm right there with you. Okay. But here's the thing. 98% of recruiters rely exclusively on LinkedIn to source talent. That's you, your talent. It's the front door to your digital presence, right? Guess what? Y'all already know how to do the stuff that I'm talking about. And in preparing this talk, I actually developed I came to peace with LinkedIn. One of the things that I discovered, none of the other socials out there provides any real reward for engaging with it, right? LinkedIn, if you engage with it, if you take the advice I'm going to give you today, it will feed you better jobs. It will put your profile in front of recruiters. That's real. That's tangible. I mean, there's community in all of the socials, right? And community is good. But beyond that, it's just them sucking the value out of you. So here, we're going to suck some value out of LinkedIn. Are we just going to talk about LinkedIn? No. We're going to talk about your LinkedIn profile. And that's you and your experience. Those are different things. We're going to talk a little bit about your resume, your portfolio. I'm only going to talk about the IA of your portfolio. You should all find yourselves a designer and get design coaching on your portfolio, because that's not going to be here. Then I have a random collection of associated strategies that I'm going to share with you. And then there's some bonus content at the end. We're going to talk about pivots and networking, all right? And then I think we'll have time for questions. So, which UX methods and tools are we going to talk about today? I'm not going to go through it and say this is when you're doing what, but the things that you are going to use to do this work, you already know, right? Structured comparative reviews, customer interviews, qualitative analysis, experience design, information architecture always, metadata strategy, content strategy, information design, right? You guys all know how to do this stuff, right? Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. So before we can start revamping your public web presence, we need to establish our goals, right? Every project has a goal. So the question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Here are some questions that I might suggest that you ask. You will likely have others. Sometimes this work is best done collaboratively with trusted friends, right? So the question is, what are you doing now? Or before you were laid off? What do you like about that work? What don't you like about it? What kind of outcomes do you want from your work? How do you want to grow or progress through a career? Who do you want to work with? Who don't you want to work with? What industries or environments do or don't you want to work in? Are there any deal breakers? There are for me. I'm sure that you guys have some too. But identifying those and being explicit about these things helps you focus on industries, or roles or levels, right? It can help you refine your searches so that you get better and more productive results, right? So now that we know what you want, let's bring you together with your users, because that's the next step, right? In any project is you need to identify who your users are. So who are they? The first one is that LinkedIn algorithm. We'll come back to that. The human users, the first one is the recruiter, right? The next one is the hiring manager, and then they have their team and also their boss. What do they need? So I did some research. I made a couple of personas for you guys. I talked to the people, so as I used to say to the JPL engineers, so you don't have to. And so I'm going to walk you through these personas. We're going to look at them through the lens of their week, right? So this is our first person, the recruiter. She is doing all of this stuff, right? All day long, really just cranking it through. These are her pain points. Job cuts, like she's out there recruiting for a job and suddenly, poof, the job is gone. She has to write job descriptions. She also has to rewrite them. Making version control a major pain point, right? She is overwhelmed by y'all reaching out to her to find out what's the status of your application. She's constantly context shifting, especially if she is like an in-house recruiter, so she's recruiting for all the verticals at once. She is in the middle of she's in a low authority position in the middle of a high stakes negotiation on both sides, right? And one of her biggest issues is talent fail. And by that, they mean, hang on, let me pull it up. Talent doesn't show up. Talent doesn't do the research. Talent isn't punctual. Talent isn't prepared. Talent doesn't respond to her inquiries. Talent shops the offer. Those are her key pain points around talent, right? But she's really, really good at her job. Her job is not UX. Her job is recruiting. So she may not have the expertise that you need she may not have the expertise that she needs to see the wireframes in her job description in the lo-fi prototypes in your resume, right? So she wants to see your technical chops. She wants to see industry expertise through a gorgeous, that's a multiple interview participant quote, a gorgeous, fully developed LinkedIn profile with your core competencies, a link to your portfolio, your contact information, your client roster, and a fleshed out about section, right? So in order to avoid that talent fail, right, you need to research the company. You need to look at the LinkedIn profiles of people who work there so you have a sense of what they do every day, what their focus is, right? Have those folks written articles or podcasts? You can learn a lot about a company just by following those little connecting bits. So let's look at the hiring manager. The hiring manager is also overloaded, right? She's doing all of these things. She's got one-to-ones with her team and her boss. She's got the dreaded budget meetings. She's doing project work. She's working on your performance review, getting you your promotion. Every time you bring her a problem, which is what you're supposed to do, it's her job to resolve them. So she's resolving those problems, right? She's also hiring for this position. She's understaffed. She's picking up the slack. And because she's hiring, she is literally doing all the same work that the recruiter is doing on a smaller scale, right? So she is reading 10 to 20 resumes every day, every couple of days. She's making a short list to share with the team. Her focus is on outcomes. Did you deliver? Did it have impact? Her expertise is similar to yours, but she's overloaded, and she needs help differentiating you from the other applicants for this job, right? And this is a big decision. It has an impact on her team. It has an impact on the projects, right? And it's a multi-factor decision with a lot of moving parts. So it's an attention economy, and you are competing with all of these things. So this is your money slide, and I'm sorry that I don't have all of the things that you're supposed to do on this slide, but we can talk about them, and you can follow up and listen to the talk afterwards to get the particulars that you missed. So we're going to talk about writing your profile right now. So I want you to find 5 good job postings that are either jobs that you aspire to or jobs that you want today, right? I want you to strip out the boilerplate. You know the boilerplate. It's all that toxic positivity about we're a family and we, everything that HR kind of shoehorned in there at the end, right? And you treat those, now that you've stripped it out and it's just the job requirements and the job description, you treat that like an interview transcript, right? And work your qualitative magic. You know how to do this work again, right? You chunk them up. You color code them so you know their source. You color code them by topic, right? You workshop it a little bit. What do they need? How do they express that? Do they talk about process? Do they talk about deliverables? What words do they use to describe that? Do you see any red flags? Always a good thing to be looking for. So I want you to do like a textual analysis of the language that they use to describe the work that you do, the work that they need. Some of them will all use the same words for a particular thing. Look at the outliers. Who uses the outliers? What are they, how is it different, right? What can you learn from that? This little bit is too much, I'm skipping over it. You need to understand that a job description that actually makes it to the web is literally a letter to Santa written by a committee. I have Chris Chandler to thank for that metaphor, right? So now that you've done all this analysis, I want you to use your findings to inform how you write your last two roles, how you write the description for your last two roles on LinkedIn, right? It'll give you the language that will allow the recruiters and the managers to see you in their job descriptions, right? Because it aligns. So for the last two roles of your profile, you write 2 to 3 sentences, a very high-level description of the business problems, the outcomes of your work, and the methods and tools that you used. Now that you've written that, put it in your resume too. You can flesh it out a little bit more in your resume, but you should use bullet points because your hiring manager is just gonna run her eye down that real fast, and if she doesn't see what she's looking for, it's gone, she's on to the next. I find it helps to write them out really long and then slash them down. There's a really great tool on the web called Hemingway app, if you're not familiar with it. No AI is used. You drop your text in, and it tells you, oh, this is too wordy, this is a long sentence. It tells you how to simplify the language, right? My recommendation is to, if you don't want to use Hemingway app, delete every third word. If you want to keep that word, you have to trade it for another one. And here are some easy words that you can delete. Intensifiers, very, always, much, various. Vegifiers, right? We've all used them, take them out. Qualifiers, adverbs, all the adverbs have to go. Take them all out, right? Get rid of internal jargon. I see all you JPLers back there. You want to aim for a 9th grade reading level, tops. Don't use Microsoft Word. It caps out at 12. Use the Hemingway app, which goes up to 22. This matters. It just makes it easier for them to, they don't have to spend as many clicks trying to figure out what you're saying, right? Whenever you talk about your work, use the outcomes to describe it. For example, our redesign increased revenues by 5%. Right? The outcomes, I'm going to hit on that in a minute. So if you are a junior, and I don't mean that in any kind of derogatory way, you're new to the profession, you can summarize the UX parts of past jobs in a kind of consolidated description. That language should point towards your current goals. So use the language that you culled from this analysis to describe even your old past work, right? Take basic Office skills out of the list. Everybody in this room can use Microsoft Office. You don't need to tell anybody about that. Put your education after your experience, because experience is really what the folks are looking for. Education is good and it's important, but it's secondary in this context, right? No GPAs. I'm super proud of you. That's an amazing GPA. Don't put it on your resume. Seniors, you can summarize more junior roles. You'll want to go back 5 to 10 years in your jobs. Do not be deceived that you must put your payroll title on your resume. I can't tell you how many years I spent as a blank assistant 2 in the payroll system, right? That doesn't mean anything. Call yourself what you did. Service design lurks in every admin role, every floor associate role, right? If you want extra credit, it's for you, not for me. You can do the same process, but find people on LinkedIn who have done the job that you are looking for and see how they describe that work. Do that same 5 job descriptions with that text. You can do both at the same time, right? What you're just trying to do is get more aligned with what the algorithm expects, with what the recruiters need. We all hate the objective. The objective really is just a terrifying thing. They're hard to write. They're no fun to read, right? So here's a little Mad Lib. My advice for you is to make this your own after you have written it. Please don't just put it up here verbatim, right? Be professional, have a little personality. Both together, balance that out. Did everybody get your pictures? Okay. So then once you've got your profile, like all kind of your descriptions of what you did, fleshed out and made good, you're going to juice the algorithm a little bit. And as I said, LinkedIn will definitely reward you for this behavior. So on the left, we have things on the profile that you can do. And on the right, we have ways that you can engage with LinkedIn in order to get traction, right? So it helps the algorithm feed you better jobs, and it boosts the visibility of your profile in recruiters and hiring managers' feeds. So most of these are kind of self-explanatory. For skills, you should include hard skills especially, but don't omit the soft skills and the creative skills. And you want to achieve a balance across those. Get recommendations and endorsements. Get them from your classmates if you're still a student. One of the things that I have discovered about being on LinkedIn for way too long is that people who are just like, oh, like an entry-level thing, gave me then a recommendation. Well, now they're director of some like entire studio. So I have recommendations from people who are directors now. It's kind of great, right? So get them and get the endorsements as well. Colleagues, bosses, teachers, right? If you have any of these things, awards, publications, presentations, podcasts, you'll want to, and they have presence on the web, link to those. Put a little description, put a little photo. I recently got an award. I was super proud. And I put it on my resume. I put it on my LinkedIn with a description and then a link to the thing. If you speak a second language or a third language, good on you. Include that. Join groups also where that language is spoken. Don't overestimate your fluency, but don't underestimate it too. I recommend that if you're not comfortable conducting a meeting in that language, that you maybe not include it. So with regard to leadership, volunteer leadership counts. The recruiters actually do take that into consideration, especially at a junior level, right? So student group leadership, include that. Professional groups, if you volunteered to help with World IA Day, for you, but also put that on your resume. Put that on your LinkedIn profile, right? Under the About section. If you did work with the PTA, if you did work in a community like a mutual aid society or something like that, right? Guest lecturing, put that stuff into your portfolio. It fleshes you out. It shows that you're engaged in the community, that you have interests outside of work. They're looking for a well-rounded individual, right? So you can do all of the things, and I don't think I need to explain what any of these are, but they do juice the algorithm, right? These last two, give and get endorsements. You can juice the algorithm while helping your own network, right? Mutual aid takes many forms. So give recommendations to your colleagues, the ones that deserve it, right? And hey, here's the good news. You only have to do this while you're looking for a job. You can stop. You can just pause it all. So how do you get good recommendations? The first thing you do is you line them up now before you need them, right? And then you make it easy for them to help you. When you reach out to them, confirm their name, their title, the department, the company, Remind them when you took their class and what group project you worked on. If it was a boss, remind them what projects you worked on. You know, we see a lot of people come through, and sometimes we don't always remember everybody. And so if you can just help them with that, that's a blessing. So now it's like you've made it all the way through to the point where the recruiter or the hiring manager is asking you for the names of 3 to 5 recommendations, right? So what do? You send those people, you're like, hey, I've made it all the way to this point. This is the job description of what I am applying for. Here is my resume. Here is a link to the hiring manager's LinkedIn profile. And then you've had several interviews with these folks. You have a feeling, a sense of what they're concerned about, what they feel like you might not be capable of doing. Share that with the person who's going to be writing a recommendation for you so that they can give you a recommendation that addresses that specifically, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So it's like you're part of a team, right? And the goal is to get you hired. And then you can then take interns, but we'll come back to that. So you'll want to give your recruiter or the hiring manager 1 or 2 extras. People go on leave, people go on vacation. Getting recommendations for a candidate is a bottleneck. It takes time. Give them options, make it easy for them, right? If you get the job, please tell your referees that you got the job. Whether you get the job or not, you need to send them a thank you note, right? Just juice the community a little bit. So, and if you can convince them to share that recommendation on your LinkedIn profile, bonus points for you. So what does she mean by a gorgeous portfolio, these recruiters, right? So I want you to think of your case study as the executive summary or the highlight reel, right? I have a little framework that I share with most of my proteges on how to structure a case study. I'm talking 3 to 5 sentences tops, right? The first thing is the business problem that you were trying to solve. The second thing is the outcome of your work. You don't want to go to tools and methods right away because nobody cares what tools and methods you used until they know what happened, right? They can see themselves in the problem. They're like, oh, this is an outcome we want. Wow, this is how they got there. We need to bring them on to do that for us. And then these last 2, the lessons the business learned and the lessons you learned, I want you to write those out ahead of time. You don't have to put them into your portfolio. You can save them for the interview. Gives you something to talk about. But you should have them in the can, ready to go. You can do shorter versions of these, right? But really, when they interview, they want to see, what did you learn? What's your process? How did that impact what you're what you do? Again, you can use Hemingway app to make this stronger, right? And then the folks that I interviewed said, and I'm going to quote one woman in particular. She said, the ideal portfolio is functional. It's not overwrought. It's easy to navigate. It's 5 to 7 of your best pieces, so it's curated. And it's important that you clarify your role on each project. She said you want to categorize your portfolio by things that are asked for in the job description. So maybe it's a deliverable type. Maybe it's an industry. Maybe it's a particular phase in the process, right? Provide that metadata. Make it easy for them to find what they're looking for. To website or not to website. Your mileage may vary, right? If you are a designer, absolutely. But also Git exists. If you're in dev, use Git. If you're in research, I wanted to be sure, I moved just into research. I wanted to be sure that it was clear that nobody got code or pixels with me. So my research portfolio is case studies in a Google Doc where I link to artifacts in a folder on my Google Drive, which makes access control really easy, right? You can also look at the portfolios of 5 people who do the work that you're trying to do and run that 5 job descriptions analysis on it if you want. Let's talk super quick about pivots. I pivoted. I've been a user experience research and designer for 25 years. As you know, the market for that sucks. And I also left Los Angeles. I moved to Eugene, Oregon, which is 2 orders of magnitude smaller, and I found 3 jobs in UX while I looked for a couple of months. And so I was trying to figure out what else I could do that would allow me to use these skills that I know and love, right? But in a slightly different environment. So these are some ways that you can pivot, some fields that you can pivot into. As a business analyst, you're repping for the business with IT, and you're working with security and compliance to gather and validate requirements, right? Civic design and urban planning, you're working with the community. You're repping the community to design to the city or to developers. Market research, you're repping with the customers for the business. These last 3, grant writing, ethnography, generally these are in an academic environment, and you would be like a research associate on some kind of project that involves design or qualitative research. The hardest part is it's really like moving to a country where you barely speak the language, right? You have some key words, but there's difference in processes. There's crosswalking it to UX. There's different expectations. There is a very different salary range in a lot of these things, right? Yeah. Phil Agri, who was an amazing faculty member at UCLA for a while before he disappeared, wrote an article on networking for the socially awkward. When they share the slides, that article is linked to it, but if you want to find it before then, you can search DuckDuckGo for Phil Agri networking ACM, and that will turn up an article. It's very 1997, but it's still really relevant and good. Professional volunteer work gets added to your resume. I strongly recommend that you join communities. These are just some that I know of: AIGA, UXPA, my friends at SGV UX. Who else? What other communities do we have here? Does anybody, y'all want to shout some out?
They're still in
LA UX community is still in exist. Yay! Chris Chandler and I started that one. Anyway, you can find them, right? You guys are all trained professionals. Join them. Go to the meetups. Get engaged. The research ops community is in Slack. They're very active. It's a huge worldwide community. There's lots of ways to find work there. Go to the meetups. Volunteer at conferences. Use LinkedIn to connect with deciders. This was, hang on. This came from the recruiters that I interviewed. She said, HR and recruiters are not your friends. Connect with the deciders. For senior roles, that's the C-level folks. For mid and junior levels, that's the directors and the managers, right? So if you go to a meetup, it's hard, right? I'm a little shy myself. Not that you would expect that, but I am socially awkward sometimes. So think of them as mini studies, right? Do a little icebreaker and keep track of what you learned. I did a whole thing on what was your UX origin story and learned so much about my colleagues and connected with folks, right? It was really helpful. These are just some prompts, right? This one's really great. If you're a student, you'll be pleased to know that a lot of conferences reserve spots for students in poster sessions and the presentations. And what's more, your school may have funding. Especially if you're a graduate student, your school will have funding to send you to conferences. So did you do a cool thing for a project? Do you have some funky way of doing a thing that works, right? Put together a poster for that. Share the love, preach the gospel. Let's do super quick, a round of networking bingo. If you're hiring, can you please stand up? Is anybody hiring today? Oh, no. Okay. Well, then I guess if you're looking, please stand up part is redundant at this point. But so now you see the challenges, right? Hang on, let me.
It's already on.
Let me see what the last slide says. Oh, right. So never apply through the app. Where does that go? How do you know? Is it even a real job? Right? There's so many fake jobs out there on LinkedIn right now. So go to the company's website. Is the job still open? Apply through the company's website. It will go to the company. Just like a word of, like when I applied for Lane County, and you'll find this in small governments, there's a site called governmentjobs.com, and they function like LinkedIn. They'll do the whole recruitment through there. So that's, but I went to the Lane County's website and went to their career section and clicked on the Apply Now button, and it dropped me out in government jobs. So I knew that they had contracted with them to do that, right? I want to talk about this 50-95 gender divide. The research shows that men will apply for and get jobs that they are 50% qualified for, and that women will not apply for jobs that they are 95% qualified for. So my advice to you is apply for the damn job. Don't put dates on your education. Don't put months in your experience. If you worked on NDA work, if you sign an NDA, scrub those deliverables already and put them in your portfolio. There are a lot of different ways to present NDA work without violating it, without violating the agreement. It's a simple search to find them. There's a lot of good ones out there, right? I also want you to understand how salary ranges work. We live in a disclosure state. The state law is that they, if asked, always ask, if asked, they have to provide a range for the position, a salary range for the position. Now you need to understand that benefits is probably going to be 30 to 40% on top of that, the value of your benefits package. And you can ask them what's the percentage that they use to calculate the value of their benefits package. And usually they will part with that information. Getting the salary range out of them is harder. Google once told me that they didn't have ranges for positions. And I said, there is a budgeted amount for this instance of this role. What is the range for that? And she still declined to tell me. And so I regarded that as not a good fit. If they were that non-transparent in the interview, that aggressive about it, right? But so here's how salary ranges work, right? Let's say you're going to hire in as an information architect, just information architect. So that role will have multiple levels, 3 to 5 of them generally. And for each of those levels, there will be a salary range. So information architect 1 will have, say, a $60,000 to $85,000 a year range. I'm just ballparking this. This is not based on any kind of reality, right? An information architect level 5 will have a $95,000 to $175,000 range, right? When they make you an offer, HR will bring you in no higher than the midpoint of that range. And they have some kind of HR magic for why they will do that. It has to do with providing you room to continue to grow in that position before they promote you to the next level. But when you look at the midpoint of the range, at the salary range that they give you, you need to understand that the highest salary you're going to be able to negotiate from them is, at that level, is the midpoint of that range. What else am I talking to you guys about? Oh, make your portfolio WCAG 2.1 AA compliant. It's a flex, but if you're applying for government jobs, government has an April 2026 deadline to be accessible, right, for all their public-facing materials. So if you can show that you can do that work, it's also the right thing to do. Cover letter should be a couple of paragraphs, no more. What you bring to the table beyond what's on your resume, but also how something in your past experience prepared you for precisely this position in this company. You're creative, you can write that. And then you want to close out with something like looking forward to the opportunity to answer your questions, right? Something like that. I want you to start writing your case studies at the close of each project. Right after y'all do that project retrospective that everybody's doing at the end of every project, right? Write your case study. Throw it up on your LinkedIn. It'll make updating things easier later, right? It's just like your website, your profile is not a project, it's a garden, so you want to tend it a little bit. And if your teams don't do retrospectives, you can do them by yourself. Nothing's stopping you. Ah, yes, this one. Once you've done this work, we're going to do this today, right now, all right? $125,000. Let's say it out loud together. 1, 2, 3. $125,000. Okay, you need to say it over and over again until it flows off your tongue and you don't giggle at the end of it when you say it, right? $125,000. 125. However you want to say it, but practice it. It sounds weird. It's hard to do. It works. And what's better is you won't be driving on the 10 east to a doctor's appointment and have the recruiter call you and say, hey, what's your desired salary? And you'll say the wrong number, like I did. Right? You'll have that number. So I'm being a little goofy, but I'm deadly serious. Practice saying it out loud. It makes a difference. That's it. Do you have questions? Fear, uncertainty, doubt. Pardon? How long am I in town? I go home tomorrow. Here, I have to give you the thing. We have a second.
So I was wondering about having multiple jobs at the same time and how to kind of present that to recruiters and whether that's like a red flag for them or if it depends on the company. Do you have any advice or have you heard anything along those lines?
So the question is if you have more than one job at the same time, like working as a human-centered researcher and also teaching. Yes, I separate them out. And I was in the position where the teaching that I was doing was relevant to the work that I was doing. So if you can sort of describe the two jobs in terms of the work that you're after. But was the question, like, are the jobs in different fields or are the jobs in the same area?
Probably in the same area.
Yeah. So a lot of us do consulting work or have a studio. Just not really, nobody that I talked to said that was a concern, right?
And they call it, like, people will call it like a studio when
Yeah.
it's just like you freelancing?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, contract work, freelancing, volunteer work, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I have a bit of a double-barreled question about NDAs and outcomes. How do you do it if, say, you were like discovery agency end of things and you don't have access to outcomes, or you've left an organization, you don't have access to the text of the NDA?
That is gnarly.
Need some help with that.
The question is about NDA, where you may not have had access to the outcomes, or you don't have access to the language of the NDA. For the second one, I might suggest that you reach out to the HR, right, and ask them for a copy. That seems fair. And you can just say, you're not with them anymore. I'm looking for a new role. I want to be sure that I don't violate the terms of my agreement. And they'll respect that, I think, right? As for not having access to the outcomes, you can talk about maybe the context in which they might have been used. You could talk about very high level, very abstracted, about what you learned, right? And I think that's kind of the limit of it. But again, I would suggest do a little bit more research into ways to present NDA work. So Reddit will know. Yes, we have a question way here in the back. I love that.
So two parts. One, is there any opportunity at which the hiring manager would give you the actual end of the salary? And then two, if you are you're pivoting from a different role and you're doing the 95% thing, you're going for it, what happens when you get that role and you feel like you're just not enough because you pivoted from a different field?
You are enough. You are enough. Mentors are out there. Literature is out there, right? You can continue to develop your skills once you get the job. The hiring manager has a lot less flexibility in the salary that they're allowed. The HR drives the salary stuff. Hiring manager may advocate for you to get a higher salary, in which case they might have to reclassify the role, and that takes time and signatures and multiple meetings. So some of the things that you can do is you can request an accelerated salary review, right? If you're taking a cut, you can. That's kind of the one that I would recommend. Sorry. In terms of like building up your skills, if you're making a pivot, there is a ton of online training. I watched they knew that I was making a pivot, right? I was frank with them in the interviews. It's like, I have done this work. It will be applicable here. But I had done a lot of kind of training videos through LinkedIn Learning and on YouTube. And so I was actually, and I'd gotten a book out of the library and read it about business analysis. And so I was actually able to say, my experience in this will crosswalk over to your need in this, right? And I mean, and to be fair, I talked a little bit about differing maturity levels. A few months ago, I delivered Lane County's first ever user experience research report, and they were just flabbergasted by, wow, we didn't know this. They had taken the ITIL service catalog and literally just copied and pasted it into the navigation for their new not public, but internally facing, external to IT categories, right? And I said, nobody is going to know where to find what they need in this. And they're like, oh no, these are the ITIL categories. And so I was like, can I take 2 weeks and maybe do some interviews? And it was huge for them. And now they're open to more of that, right? A little bit of evangelism, a little bit of the heroin dealer's model. First one's free, kids. What else we got? Another question in the back.
Hi. So if you're pivoting from a different field, what is the best way to kind of like sell yourself pivoting into UX? Because, during interviews, if they ask about my experience, there's not a lot that I can say that's really UX involved without kind of like stretching the truth quite a bit. So what would be your recommendation for that?
So part of it is understanding the breadth of UX research and design. And how fungible those skills are, right? And so look at the job description and kind of ask yourself, like, what is this work that they're asking for? What have I done that would prepare me to do this? And then describe your old work in these new terms if you're pivoting into UX, actually in any pivot, right? So I described all of my work in my profile, in my resume, as business analysis, right? And walking the line, because I was like, hell yeah, if I can find a UX job too. So I had a profile on LinkedIn that kind of balanced the two, right? And I would use language from both fields to describe the work. So I would talk about the requirements gathering, and I would also talk about the discovery.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm standing between y'all and lunch, but I have 2 more questions, so I'm going to take those 2, and then I'm going to go. I don't know who had their hand up first, but he's closer with the mic there, so we'll get you next time.
Hi.
Hi.
So you're talking a lot about LinkedIn, obviously, because, well, that's the subject, so thank you for that.
98% of recruiters.
But I'm also curious, outside of LinkedIn, if there are any side doors that you've found. I end up like having open office hours and kind of talking people through similar stuff like this. And I'll say, go to the bottom of the website. There's a careers link.
Yeah.
Like things like that.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have any work, why not just figure out something in your life that needs to be reorganized? Why not, I couldn't figure out if I could go to the golf course during COVID. So I made like a bigger portfolio out of that I've ever seen anyone show, and it was just for fun. Like, where could people sneak in? And if they can't find a job, is it possible that they're just not a good designer?
I mean, that's not for me to decide right here. But to your point.
By the market, I mean,
I think it's just a question of the right opportunity is not this one, right? So, but to sort of expand beyond LinkedIn, you know that slide I had about networking? All of my best jobs came through the network. So you really need to nurture your network, right? Stay in touch with people. That is one of the other things that I really love about LinkedIn. It allows me to stay in touch with people that, like, you work on a project with someone, you tight, right? You guys are, you go through it. And then they move to another job, and I haven't seen some of these people in 20 years. One of the recruiters that I interviewed, she and I spent 15 minutes of our 30 minutes trying to figure out how it was that we'd been connected, because we'd been connected for so long that we didn't even remember. So think of LinkedIn longitudinally, right? Because time is an element. I don't know if that helped answer your question. It's a hard one, especially when you get a lot of rejection over and over and over again. And I know that a lot of y'all are wrestling with that. Sometimes I recommend that you just take a job, even if it's an admin job, right? Because as I said, you can bring these skills and they will make you more effective and more promotable and more useful, right? In every floor associate's role, there is some kind of service design opportunity. And if you can do a service design project and improve a little thing, then you can point to that in your resume, right? You have a question. I don't have the mic.
Who had a question?
This gentleman here.
Hi, so my name is Josh. Thanks for coming to, present everything. I appreciate that. So, as someone who's like recently getting into UX design, a lot of my work on my portfolio is conceptual. Mm-hmm. That's not really out there. There's no real world impact. Mm-hmm. And I'm like struggling to kind of understand how to make those works as like a strong strength for hiring managers to see when there's, it's hard to measure something that's not really out there as a product.
You have no measurable outcomes.
What is your experience on like?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, right? The question is, I'm just entering the profession, my portfolio is entirely hypothetical, how do we make that into something that will get me a job, right? Did I sum that up properly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would it be like would it be going over like how would I measure this if this were like a real world
That's
product?
part of it. You could say how you would measure the outcomes, but you can, there's one thing that you really need to understand, that when you're applying to entry-level positions, generally, they don't expect you to have a fully fleshed out portfolio, right? Student work for an entry-level portfolio is good, is fine. What they want to see is process, decision-making, and learning. So if you can emphasize those things, so maybe you add into the case study those last two bits about the learning, right? That could be helpful for fleshing it out. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I'm here all day. I think we're out of time. But find me and ask me your question, and then like juice your network. Go out and give recommendations to your work besties. Do it now. Well, not now, but tomorrow. Thank you, guys.